has now put in public-private partnership route for railway. So they may run a private rail, they may run a freight train. So that's going to be the next step. Road sector, 4689842, I don't know how many millions it is the second largest road network in the world. But the average speed of the truck is only 25 kilometers an hour. That's the challenge what we have. At 0.66 kilometer of road per kilometer of land, the quantitative density of India's road network is similar to that of United States. However, 54% of these roads are paved, and India has less than 3.8 kilometers road per 1,000 people, contrast to the US, which has got 21 kilometers per 1,000 people. Now, Indian road network carries about 65% of freight and about 85% of passenger traffic. Imagine the power of the road traffic and the road transportation. 1.5 million truck operators in India having average 4 trucks. Imagine the power of the road transportation in this country. And I always say, and I was just sharing with the chairman, that I always say in India, after the farmer, if next one to be respected is a transportation man. If he's dead and if he's not doing, you can grow anything and everything, but country will not have any products to move around. This is the Golden Quadrilateral project, which is connecting major cities, which is Delhi, Mumbai, Chennai, and Kolkata, which is on the way. This road freight has grown as 8.6%, and 17,700 kilometers highways connect the major manufacturing centers. India will need to invest 1.7 trillion on infrastructure before 2020 to meet its economic need. To remain for us into that trajectory of the GDP, this is what we need. And so many countries are participating. This is the rapid growth in industries such as automobile, pharma, fast-moving consumer goods, e-commerce, which has put us into ahead. And increased international trade between India and its trade partner is going to place increased demand on logistic service providers. The strong domestic demand also going to be giving opportunity for the 3PL and the GST, which is Good Service Tax, which is going to come in April 26, is going to be again a great opportunity for the third party. Okay, I just ran through the data just to let you know what India is. But what is India is today? It's the largest democracy in the world with 29 different states, and now an elected government which has got a full majority in the parliament. And we expect government to do wonders. For last 10 years, we had a coalition government, and the government could not do what they wanted to do. There is more emphasis on doing business easily, the ease of business. That is a focus. We want to improve on that. We also want to improve on the corruption, which our country has recognized, which is a challenge for us, which will be addressed probably over a period. Idea is to develop skill. What is skill today? 400 million skilled people will be needed in India by 2020. 400 million skill needed for that growth. And if all we are talking about 65% or down the line, almost 65% age, having people below 29%, India will be the power to supply the human power to the world. The world may have best infrastructure, best software, the best soft infrastructure, but the human capital is going to come from India. And that's why you have to look at India as a country to be a partner and to be a neighbor. Coming back into the India's position and how Dubai can be partner. What is India today? India has good manufacturing, has a low-cost manufacturing, is competing with China greatly. The culture of Africa is similar to India, and India and Africa culture-wise can move close to close, but our laws does not give that seamless process to deal with Africa. Africa has its own challenges. And that's why Dubai is important. And Dubai can be a good link between these two regions to move forward. And I think so Dubai must understand that India and the other country neighboring will move faster in terms of implementation of infrastructure and software or the soft aspect of infrastructure. I think so this is a time to build a partnership in a right manner and right way. And that's where the Make in India program, we should look at it as a more, future going. The globalization, you can see India's total trade has grown from 57 billion in 1997 to, oh sure, I'll do. Okay, I've been told I overstepped my limit. Did we start late? Okay, now I'll move faster. These are just a point. I'll just conclude in, you can see United Arabs is our large import partners also. And I will leave this here, but I just want to conclude what we can do together. We can build the human capital of the world. India is a place where we produce the best teachers and the best universities. And that's what we need to partner. And that's what we need to do together. And what we need to do is, between India and Africa, via Dubai, is to build this three partnership together. Thank you.
Thank you, Tushar. You have made everybody do a PhD on India now. And I'm sure everybody will know more about India than Indians themselves who have not heard you today. You've given the full demographics, you've given the economics, you've given the statistics, you've given it everything. Thank you, Tushar, for that. Our next speaker is Mr. Babar Badat. He's in business since 1980 in the field of international logistics and transport management. He is the director of Transfreight Corporation Private Limited and Ecoline Pakistan Private Limited. He is the founder chairman of the Pakistan International Forwarders Association, member of FIATA Zurich, our international body, FIATA in Zurich, first chairman of the International Road Transport and TIR Commission, senior vice president again in FIATA, chairman also of the advisory body on international affairs, member in the UN's ESCAP Business Advisory Council, and he is a member of the Prime Minister's Committee on National Trade, Corridor Improvement Program in Pakistan. He will be addressing all of us, giving us an insight into logistics in Pakistan. I give to you, Mr. Babar Badat.
It's nice to be back in Dubai. It's such a vibrant place. Every time I come here, I see new buildings, new bridges. Thank God I don't have to drive over here. Able to get a taxi very quickly. Francisco, David, Basil, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I'm not so sure as to how many of you have been to Pakistan. Not many, I suppose. I don't think so. So I decided to give an introduction of Pakistan in a different way. You will have a lot of statistics available through the Google, but I've tried to give you a generic, oh, it's already started. You're supposed to hold it. Hang on. Take it back to the beginning. I'm not doing that. They're doing it from there. So, as I was saying, so I've given you, I'll try and give you a very generic introduction. This is Pakistan. It's 200 million people, not as big as India, but close second. And we are straddled between large countries and economies of China, India, and energy-rich Iran. That's the geography of the country. We have got a rich heritage. The country itself has a 5,000-year-old heritage, a lot of discoveries and all. It's a unique rural landscape. 6 of the 14 highest mountain peaks in the world are in Pakistan, and this is K2, which is the second highest. We have modern urban centers, modern infrastructure in the country. The people have a very competitive spirit. We are leading in many sports in the world. And this is just to give you a basic introduction of the country itself, not only logistics, we'll go on to that. We love our sports, our outdoors. Horses are a great pastime over there. So just put in something for you over there. We have the world's largest canal-based irrigation system. We are big growers of rice and wheat. We are the third largest producers of mango. Fourth largest producers of cotton. We have a very large cotton textile industry. We are the fourth largest, as you can see, sugarcane growers. After India, US, and China, we are the fourth largest in milk powder, and in milk itself. Mineral reserves. We are the 6th largest population. By 2030, we are expected to be the 4th largest after China, India, and the US. Our stock market also did well a couple of years ago. Okay, so now I'll just come to the logistics industry itself. Entry of the first international freight forwarding companies in the Pakistan market was in the late 70s. They were mostly European companies venturing into the Middle East and the subcontinental markets, which included Pakistan, India, Sri Lanka, and Bangladesh. The next 20 years saw a steady growth of the industry in Pakistan, and few international organizations established branches in Pakistan. Local companies moved even faster, and the sector today consists of approximately 1,500 organizations. In December 2004, the sector set up a national association called PIFA. A set of standard trading conditions were prepared, and we got them approved by the government as well as the federal chambers. To establish international connectivity, PIFA took membership of FIATA and moved the government to get recognition as an independent industry. Pakistan's logistics industry has a strong foundation in the shape of its association PIFA. It has achieved the required level of international assimilation and has put in place a process for human resource development by introducing a first-class international accredited vocational training program, which it runs at the PIFA Logistics Training Institute in cooperation with FIATA. Several hundred people have done this course, and PIFA today has a membership of over 600 companies. Here are some details on our main ports. We've got 3 main ports. There's some statistical details over there. These are the road structures over there. We've got a good road network all across the country. We're connected in the north all the way up to China. And I'll speak later, tell you a little more about that later on. We have a good rail network, which is, of course, like India. It was set up at the same time. So you got your portion, we got ours, and it's more or less the same. Pakistan, Afghanistan, Central Asia, and Western China have a combined population of around 300 million people. And this whole region is still not connected by adequate transport infrastructure and services as yet. Pakistan, we feel, has a geographical advantage in the region. Its ports can provide the closest access to the logistics requirements of these 300 million people. Karachi's gateway potential can be optimized by creating a vertical connect between Karachi's wharves and the markets of Central Asia and Western China. And you can see the connectivity graph done over there. Here I've mentioned some of our border crossings in the region. As you can see, in the north we've got Kunjrab, which connects with China. We've got 2 connects with Afghanistan, Torkham and Chaman. Then we've got 2, Taftan and Gabad with Iran. And we've got Wagah and Kokrapar with India. Hopefully, whenever trade is facilitated and the political issues are resolved, there is a lot of potential over there. This is the Asian road highway network, and as you can see, it connects from Pakistan all the way into China, into Central Asia, and going into Turkey and the Middle East also. So we've just taken a snapshot of what we have available there. This is the details of the railway network. The dotted lines are the lines where they propose or work is going on to set up a railway connectivity over there. The roads networks are already, the rail networks are already there, the other lines. Now I'll mention a little bit about the transport corridors that we have. Afghanistan will continue to remain as a staging point for any foray that we may make into Central Asia. And Pakistan is developing a transport corridor from Torkham into Kabul and going up to Termez in Uzbekistan. It's about 440 kilometers. And that's the corridor that we're looking at connecting into Central Asia. Hundreds of trucks cross over into Afghanistan and from Pakistan and vice versa every day. Trade is going on. Afghanistan has a fairly functional road transport environment, therefore a relatively developed trucking industry. And above all, they are TIR compliant. And because they are TIR compliant, the possibility of moving into Central Asia is very good. So we are working with them to develop this sector